What we're going to do in this video is take a look at questions 14 through 26 on the practice test for statistics. What we have for questions 14 through 16 to get us started is a stem leaf diagram. The stem leaf diagram, the key indicates that 3 bar 6 is 3,600. We have the rest of the data representing how much semester or tuition and fees are for one semester at some university. So there's an example. Here is the actual data set. What we want to do for this first part is number 14 is to calculate the mean or the average. So what I'm going to do is add up the first data point, which is 1400, to the second data point, to the third data point, and I will just keep going until I get to the end, $5,100. Now I'm going to count the number of schools that I've taken a look at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 data points, and when I find the average of that, when I add those up and divide by 8, my average will be 3,087.50. My answer is D. There's how you do 14. Number 15, finding the mode of this data set, the most frequent value in the data set. 2,500 occurs twice. That is the most frequent data point. My answer is B. And then the range of the data set. This range is the most expensive school minus the least expensive school, the maximum data point minus the minimum data point. My most expensive school is 5,200. My least expensive is 1,400. When I subtract those two, I would get $3,800. My answer D. There's a stem leaf diagram and some statistical measures based upon that stem leaf diagram. Number 17, which of the following represents the spread of data? For this one, it would be choice A, range sample variance standard deviation. The mean median mode is all about the central tendency. So that is the difference between those two with the spread and the tendency. Speaking of spread, let's take a look at a data set where we want to find the sample variance and sample standard deviation from this data set. So my sample variance, I am going to do this by finding the sum of this last column, 288.75, that's what that sigma means. I've added up that last column. I'm going to divide that by n minus 1, where n is the number of data points. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 data points. I'm going to say 4 minus 1, 288.75 divided by 3. My sample variance would be 96.25. There's how you would do sample variance problem. To find the sample standard deviation, I just take the square root by sample variance, and that would be 9.1. And the last problem, if I subtracted 2 from each value in the data set, the spread, any spread value would not change. The sample variance would not change. The standard deviation would not change. The range would not change. Mean, median, and mode would change. It would become 2 less. So any spread in data would be the value that would not change. Take a look at 21. What would be the standard deviation of this data set? It's 0. The typical data point is 0 units away from the sample average. There is no variance in data at all because all the data points are the same. Using a frequency table, let's find some statistical measures from this frequency table. Let's say we have a concert and the band wants to see some demographics and some statistics about who their music appeals to. So at this concert, there was some data taken. The children at the concert, there were 57. The teenagers, there were 68. Young adults, 36. A little bit older adults, a little bit older adults. That's how many people were at this concert. Since I don't have the actual data set, I have to use the midpoint of each one of these intervals. So my first interval, the children, there were 57. I don't have the data set. I'm going to call these children about 5 years old, the midpoint. To find the average, I'm going to say the 5-year-olds times 57 of them, that's that value. There are the teenagers that I'm going to say are 15. There were 68 of them. The young adults, they were 25 years old. There were 36 of them. The 35-year-olds, there were 71 of them. 45-year-olds, 44 of them. Since I'm finding the average or the mean, I have to divide by the number of people that were at the concert. What this is the number of people frequency. So there were 276 people there. The average age, I add all of those up, is 24.2 old. I answer choice A. For choice B, the mode of this data set, the most crowded interval where most people are, the age group. There were 71 people, the most crowded interval. Don't have the data set. I have to go with my midpoint as my mode for there. But I did go for 35 because they were the most at 8. And the range of the data, the youngest and the oldest person there is 45 years of age, that midpoint, that estimate. The youngest person there, the children, there might have been a baby there, I don't know. I have to use the midpoint. The range in data is 40 years, so that's a pretty big spread of data for this band as far as the age group. Take a look at the last two. These are identifying histograms from a frequency table. So here we have some birth weights, premature babies. There were 44 in this first group. There were 30 in this second group. There were 16 in the third group. 5, 2. You can see that that is stepping down to the right. That would be right. And the last one is the same shape. This would be skewed right as well. It steps down towards right.